Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tales of the Mystical, where we share our deep, transformative, mystical experiences that have forever altered how we view this 3D reality we're living in. First, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. My name is Brooke. I am your celestial storyteller. We are going to dive in today to stories about signs from loved ones who have passed away. I have a bunch of really cool stories lined up for y'all, so stay tuned to hear all of those. But first, go ahead and like and subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this, or stories about things like NDEs, plant medicine journeys, meditative experience, breath work journeys, that kind of thing. And let me know in the comments below what you want to hear about as well. If there's one of these stories that I didn't mention earlier, go ahead and put it down below, and you never know, we may share your story on here. You can also email your stories at talesofthemystical@gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, all at Tales of the Mystical. And we have a Reddit page as well at Tales of the Mystical. So if I haven't said the title of this enough, let's go ahead and dive right in. This first story completely blew my mind. So this follower said that he sadly lost his wife. She had a long terminal illness and she passed away. And after she passed, he continued to make her coffee every single morning the way she liked it and leave it out. And on the second day of doing this, he was surprised to find that there was a beautiful pattern in the coffee. Like they would make it a barista. Sometimes they were flowers, sometimes they were geometric shapes, just different designs every single day when he left the coffee out from her. And he knew it was a sign from her. But he began to worry that maybe it was taking too much of her energy to leave him these signs. So, after about a year of this, he sat down and said, "Listen, I love these signs that you are leaving me in the coffee, but I don't want you to exude too much of your energy. So, if it does take a lot of energy tomorrow morning, don't worry about leaving it for me. I know that you're okay. I know that you've crossed over and that you're still with me. So, please don't feel like it's necessary." He said he woke up the next morning and made her coffee as he always did. And lo and behold, there was no design in the coffee. He said this went on the next morning and the following day and the following day as well, until after several days, he said he could not take it anymore. And he felt this overwhelming sense of sadness that his wife wasn't leaving him these signs anymore. He felt so disconnected. So that night, he talked to her again and he said, "Listen, I really love your signs. I love the designs that you leave me in the coffee. Please, if there's any way you can, start leaving me those signs again." And what do you know? The next morning, when he woke up, his coffee cup that he put his wife's coffee in and laid out for her had a beautiful geometric design in it. And he said every single day since, he makes his coffee and he makes her coffee, and her coffee always has a design in it. I absolutely love this story. This touched my heart, and it just goes to show how close we are to those who have crossed over. The fact that she's able to leave him these designs and the coffee every day is just mind blowing and fascinating. And I think that's so, so beautiful. This next story was sent in by a Reddit user, and it's entitled, "I Encountered My Son's Spirit." She said, "I lost my son when he was 20 years old in a terrible car accident. For 4 years, I wondered how I would ever survive. What helped me get through was all the mystical experiences I'd had. I experienced 12 phenomena that can only be described as supernatural. I will go into detail about one here. I was taking my client's dog on a walk on a day that I was inconsolably depressed. Because of my state, I didn't want to make eye contact or talk to anyone, even though most of the time when we went out walking, so many people stopped us because this dog was just so beautiful and they wanted to talk about how pretty she was, and I knew they wanted to send blessings my way. But this day in particular, I was just not up for it. As we walked, I crossed a lake on a bridge and saw a small hooded figure making his way towards me. As he got closer, I saw he was a little white haired man and he was definitely heading right towards us. By the time our paths crossed and we came together, we both stopped in front of one another and said nothing. But I felt such an overwhelming sense of peace. I noticed a sophisticated hammer, camera hanging around his neck and proclaimed, "Oh my goodness, you're a photographer," finally breaking the silence. And he corrected me and said, "No, ma'am, I am a poet." I froze in my tracks at that moment. Before my son had died, he had asked me if there was any way I thought he could make a living as a poet. And he is the only one I've ever heard describe himself as a poet until now. I shattered and began to shake a little bit until he asked me exactly what my son would have. "Would you like to hear one of my poems?" My son always used to read me his poems, and so of course I said yes. Tears began to flow from my eyes like a waterfall, but the man never asked why I was crying. He just stood there in peace. He knew. I felt like I was encountering my son. The man went on to recite the most beautiful, elegant poem, and it was about how death is not the end of life. I began to sob even harder, and at that moment, a giant monarch butterfly flew and landed right on me. I could feel its little legs sticking to my top, and after a long time, it flew away. And then I had the thought to ask the man to take a photo, or that I should have asked the man to take a photo. And I expressed to him how sad I was that I did not think to ask him to photograph this moment. He simply said, "Ma'am, you do not have to have a photo to prove to people that what you experienced is real." I stood there in utter amazement. The man was wearing very large sunglasses, and I felt so at peace. I asked if he minded removing them. He did, and his eyes were this pale blue, translucent color like ones of an angel. We said our goodbyes and walked in opposite directions. After a few feet, I turned around to get one last glance, and he was gone, completely disappeared. I knew exactly what had happened in that moment. It was my son's spirit coming to comfort me in the form of this man. That story is so, so cool. Thank you so much, first of all, to this user for sharing that story. And I have no doubt that this was her son coming to say goodbye, whether it was in the form of an angel, whether this man was an angel, or whether it was just put on his heart by her son to go walking that day and have this encounter. That's just so incredible. And this just touched my heart. So I had to share it with y'all. This next story is from another Reddit user, and it's entitled "Signs from Beyond, a Doorbell and a Fire Alarm." They said, "My aunt passed away, and a couple of days later, out of the blue, a fire alarm went off." What's weird is it was the only fire alarm in the house that went off. It was one upstairs. None of the other fire alarms had been going off. And when I got to it, it suddenly stopped out of the blue. For context, the fire alarm is next to our piano, and my aunt would always ask me to send her recordings of my son playing the piano. That was the only day that this ever happened. The story goes on, and the author said, "My best friend passed a couple of weeks ago. We always joked when she was alive that she would come visit me after she passed. She had been fighting cancer, so it wasn't really a surprise when it happened." 3 days later, my doorbell began to ring, but not just ring, it was ringing really, really fast, like multiple times in a row. So much so that my dog began to bark uncontrollably. And when I went to look, Nobody was there, but it was ringing so fast, like when my kid gets home from school and is super excited and rings the doorbell over and over again. But again, no one was outside ringing the bell. I felt an immediate sense of happiness and relief, and I knew that it was my best friend and she was excited to keep her promise to me. But I also had this overwhelming sense that she was happy and at peace and in a better place. Has anyone else experienced anything like this? First of all, I want to thank this Reddit user as well for sharing your story. That is so cool. And yes, I 100% believe that that was your best friend coming to let you know she's okay. And how beautiful that y'all were able to have that conversation before she passed on. And she told you that she was going to let you know that she's okay. I had talked about on this page before how I asked my grandpa to send my brother a sign when he passed because my brother was in another country and couldn't get to be by his bedside to say his goodbyes. And the morning that he passed, my brother saw a rainbow, even though he was out running in the desert and there were no clouds in the sky, no rain, nothing. So I 100% believe our loved ones can come visit and can come send us signs like this. What a cool story. This next story is from another Reddit user, and he said his wife also passed away. He said one night he had a dream that his wife gave him a tour of their afterlife home, which was a mountain lodge, and he could see everything, every room, all of the furniture, the decor in great detail. When he woke up, he blogged about the dream and shared it on a Facebook post, and he used the words mountain lodge to describe the home that he had seen. Later that day, he was watching Wheel of Fortune, and the puzzle, one of the answers on it was Mountain Lodge. He said, another time I received a box containing parts of an outdoor swing. Normally, these types of things have the little tools that you need in order to put it together, but this one was missing the Allen wrench. Oh my goodness. I thought I might have some loose Allen wrenches somewhere. So, myself and my children all searched the house. I searched all my toolboxes I had multiple times, and yet it was nowhere to be found. I did not even have a rogue one just laying around from a past project. Finally, my daughter got so frustrated that while she was walking down the hall, she asked my wife, who had passed, to help us find the Allen wrench. She went to look at the toolbox again, but this time, sitting on top of the toolbox was a package of unopened, unused Allen wrenches in multiple sizes, including the size we needed, just sitting there, even though we had checked my toolboxes multiple times. That is so cool that your wife helped you find this pack of Allen wrenches. Like, I 100% believe that she sent those to you and put them on the box. The fact that all of you, like not just you, but this author and his children all looked at all of the toolboxes multiple times and didn't see it, and then it was sitting on top of the box, to me is just further proof that this was signed a sign from his wife, and his wife had sent him this pack of Allen wrenches. Thank you so much for sharing that story. Finally, our last story is from another Reddit user, and it's about her son who had passed away and left her a sign on the computer. She said, my son did a wild thing to his sister's computer. He always liked to play this one particular game, and a few months before his passing, he convinced his sister to let him use her computer that she used for her college classes to play this game. So he logged in and played the game that day. And after that, it was kind of forgotten about. She never played the game, and you had to open multiple applications in order to get to that particular game, but she never played. She had totally forgotten it was on there until one day, a few weeks after his passing, we were sitting there in the kitchen together and she was doing her homework. She set the computer down, closed the lid, and went into another room to grab something. When she came back and opened the computer, the game was not even like not just open, but it was signed into and the intro song was playing. Needless to say, we both freaked out. I work with computers extensively, and I know from my own experience there was no way that this game had just opened on its own without some form of divine intervention. I should add that I was sitting next to this computer the entire time where she was in the other room and the lid was closed. Nobody touched the computer, nobody went in and opened the game. But when he was alive, he was actually quite good at that kind of stuff, like the technological aspects of things. We ended up having several more experiences like this, especially in the beginning. Now they are getting fewer and further in between. It will be 8 years in March, and I figure he is probably busy on the other side doing other things. But I can't tell you how comforting it was, especially in the beginning, to have these experiences, knowing that it was my son coming to let us know that he was okay. Thank you so much to this Reddit user as well. What an incredible story. And I 100% believe that people on the other side can affect our electronics. Like my energy sometimes affects electronics as well. So, what a beautiful sign from this woman's son letting her know that he's okay. If anyone else has any stories like this of loved ones who have passed on, signs from them, experiences with them, go ahead and put it in the comments below, or you can email me at talesofthemystical@gmail.com. As I said in the beginning, you can also find me on Reddit, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram at Tales of the Mystical on there as well. And let me know in the comments below what other kinds of stories you all want to hear about. And I look forward to sharing this journey with you. Don't forget to like and subscribe.